Hello, hello. So today's stream, I'm alone for this today's stream. Q will join us next week. Um, the idea today was basically I wanted um, to go a step further from last week and update our Notion database from our WeWeb interface. And also, I thought it would be cool to share with you um, what our founders are thinking in terms of roadmap for the rest of the year. And we've also had a few user questions this week that I think it would be cool to go through together. So if there's anything you'd like me to talk about, just feel free to ask your questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to answer. In the meantime, first I'm gonna do. Usually it's Q that who takes care of this, so I'm actually gonna try and add some music here, background music. Pretty cool. Let me know if it's too loud. And yeah, so let's get going. I've got. Oh, I didn't expect that. Wow. All right, so let's go. I'll share my screen again. If there's anything you want to talk about, let me know. We Today's going to be mostly improvised and answering questions if you have any. I'm not planning on doing a big demo like we sometimes do. So I will first share my screen, and if you remember, actually I don't need my case here. So if you remember, we had what we did last week, and I can share a replay with you. But basically, what we did last week is we had a Notion database, and what we did is we got that the information from that database. We got it into WeWeb, and now the next step would be to actually update to be able to update our Notion database right from WeWeb. So let's say if we wanted to change that to so tomatoes, the status is checked, let's say, and we validate, then we could have that description checked here. That would be an option. So I've actually done this already, so let me just delete what I've done so I can show you. And let's see, or I can show you how I did it. Actually, it's a bit of a nightmare working. If you're not familiar with Notion API, it's a little bit of a nightmare because the data is very nested. So I'll show you that in a second. First, let me get my water. I'll mute myself a second. Yeah, in homage to Queen Elizabeth II, I'm actually drinking tea for one. So, but I'm not sure how to go about this, actually. I'm wondering if it's best that maybe I show you. Yeah, the first thing I'll do is I'll show you what the Notion what the data from Notion looks like, and I will show you like this. So this is to get data from Notion, you need to use this URL, use your database ID, and add query here. It's all in the recording from last week. Then you authorize and you make sure you tell Notion which version you're using. It's just a little recap. And here, when I click continue, you see that this is the data that Notion sends us back. So you can go in here and you see this is every item. So it's those three items are here in the results, the 3 items. And inside that, you can go ahead and inside the properties, you can look for the name and then inside title and then inside text. And then there you go. You actually have the text information, the tomatoes. If I view the results this way, non-formatted mode, it's the same thing here. So you see it's a list of objects, and in the object you'll go inside, and then the properties, it's here, and then you'll go and get the name and the title to actually get the text. It's title 0, the first, for some reason it's an array, and then here you go, you have tomatoes. So it's a little bit, that's how the data is structured in Notion. The reason for that is that Notion is basically works in blocks, and blocks are nested inside blocks. So that's how their data is structured on their side. So just to kind of clean the results a little bit, I like to add the results here. So results here and the result key. That way I only get my 3 items. I don't get all the other information. So now that you know what the Notion data looks like, it's more obvious that it's going to be tricky to update because it's nested inside so many items. So what we do is actually, one thing I did is in Postman, what I did is I went ahead, and this is the same request that I have in WeWeb. And you see here I have my results object, and you see here I have the page. So one object here. And what I did basically is I copied that, all of this here. So this is just one page, I think. Or is it all the pages? Let me check. No, it's all the pages. Anyway, it's fine. So I'll take this entire object, and what I'll do is I'll go inside Visual Studio Code. Why am I not able to open it? All right, my desktop shortcut is not working anymore for some reason. Anyway, so I have the Visual Studio Code, and what I'll do is I'll copy the entire results basically here. And maybe what I can do is I actually only need one. So let me take this one. Okay, this is an object page, and I'll get this one. Okay, so I'll just get this one, get a new tab, and copy this here. Okay, so this obviously doesn't look very no code. It's it's JSON. It is the start of code. So let's call it. Why my shortcuts are not working? This is weird. Anyway, Notion object, boom. And okay, so we see here everything that we saw in WeWeb previously, and what we actually need is the properties. So what we'll do is immediately I'll get rid of this, because when I update my object, I will only want to update things that are inside the properties. So for example, the title, potatoes. And something else that, so actually let's use it like that. So what I did initially is I copied all of this because I know it's an object that, it's the object that Notion expects if I want to update an item. Hey Sham, how are you doing? You might be, yeah. Right now I have I see 3 in it. There are 2 on Twitch and 1 on YouTube. So, but yeah, we haven't promoted this live stream much. We need to do that a bit more. To be honest, it's been a crazy week, so we just kind of thought we'd do it and see what happens. Hisham, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And yeah, so what we did basically is I thought, okay, well, Notion will need the properties from the object. I need to be able to update this. So what I did is I copied this entire object and I put it in WeWeb. And here I created an object variable, sorry, here, which I called update item. And I copied it here. And what I did, actually, you see here that it's smaller than the than what we have here. That's because in my API call, I'm gonna say, okay, update properties, and then I'm gonna send this only. So yeah, I'm gonna send this. So actually now I can get rid of this. Oops. So I'm not gonna send, this is something, it's part of something else. And I'm gonna just, and that's now my object. So maybe I can, yeah. So this is basically the properties object in Notion. And one thing I know that I do not need is the annotations. And just to be clear, I know that I don't need them because I tested with and without. I did not know that from the start. It wasn't clear from the Notion documentation, at least not to me. So just in an effort to make this variable smaller and more readable, I got rid of this as well. Got rid of the annotations here and here. And that's how I got to this variable, basically, and to this object variable. And so then once you have this structure, what you can do is, once you know the object that you've defined, what object Notion needs, basically on the data grid, you have when you're on the data grid, you have you have an update row workflow. And so what we did is when a user clicks to update the workflow, what I want to do is, oh, actually, I won't do a partial update. I'll do it like this. What I want to do is I want to up this variable, this update item object that I have. I want to return all the information that Notion will require. And let me know if this is not clear. It might not be clear, especially if you're new to APIs. And anyway, so here in our name, for example, here, the content here is potatoes. And you've noticed that I've replaced it here. So actually, it used to be potatoes. Boom. Okay. All right. Yeah, so it used to be potatoes, and I replaced it by something here, which is the event. And the event, so the event is the, thanks Q. French strudel is Q, my usual acolyte. And so the content is actually, the value of the event is the value of the workflow event, so of the when the user clicks on update in the data grid. So this is an object. The event value is an object, and in that object you have all the information from the row. So actually, in our case, what we need to do here, so it was potatoes, and if we go back here on our data grid in our settings, when we bound column 1, the path was this. So it was properties, and this is basically how the data grid is able to get the data from Notion. So remember, it's nested inside properties, then name, then title, and it's the first item in the array title. Then in the object title, we go ahead and we get the plain text. So what we can do is we can copy all of this, the path where there's the text, and here back in our workflow, we'll go ahead and paste this right after we refer to the value in the data grid. So Ishan is telling us you've tested our solution recently and you were impressed by the UI builder. It's awesome. That's really cool. That's really nice to hear. And so you're an IT developer and most of the time work on the backend side. We've actually noticed a lot of people are in your position where, most of the time, so developers who have that, who are not, who are programmers and developers, but they don't necessarily have a lot of time to build a front end, or don't really want, it's not what's interesting to them. Like they're more of like back end people, and it's really exciting because recently we've definitely my face is no longer here. We've we've noticed that there are more and more people like you that are really good at the back end side of things and not necessarily interested in the front end side of things. And it seems like we're a good fit for your type of profile, Isham. So thanks a lot for the kind words. What are you building actually in WeWeb? Did you just test for just for fun, or did you have a specific project you were working on? Let us know. I'd be interested in knowing. Yeah, we can have a look at your project actually if you'd like, or not. We don't have to. Okay, so basically when we're here, we're telling. So here we're sending the entire properties object to Notion. I mean, we will send it where it's the object that we're creating for Notion. And here, what we're doing is we're saying in the data grid, take this, in this case, it's a text. It takes this content from this value from the data grid. And so we did it as well we did the same thing for the description. And for the checkbox, we actually right now they're all set at true, so let's change it at false, and I'll explain why we didn't do it like this with the event in a second. So okay, now that we have this object, oops, sorry, I'm gonna go back here. And yeah, I was just saying basically here where I just changed the checkbox to false because it was true, and you can see in our data grid that actually they're all. Oh, I took them out, so that's even better. All right, so here we have. Basically, we will have the variable, the object variable with all our properties. We'll have it updated with the data from the data grid. And the second thing we'll want to do is we'll want to do a patch request to Notion using this URL. So that's in the Notion doc. You will see that the URL, well, the API request to update a database record is basically this URL and then the page ID. And I will show you in a second where this is coming from. Then the page ID. So this page ID, I got it from here. And it's the ID that when I set up my data grid, I gave it the unique ID. And in this case, the unique ID is the page ID. So it's exactly what my API call needs. Yes, whenever possible, any update on staging environment or some insight on way to perform testing with Xano test database and applying changes to production that used Xano live database. So for the staging environment is it's the priority on the roadmap, basically. So we think we will be able to deliver self-hosting next week. If not next week, it will be the week after. So first of all, you'll have the option of self-hosting very, very soon. The staging environment is coming later. I don't have an exact timing. Initially, we were aiming for September, but the end of September, but I am unsure. Not sure that is still the case. I know our founders met this morning to. We're in Europe, so this is afternoon for us. So they met this morning in Europe, in the middle of the night, or later in the afternoon in other places in the world, and they'll be So they may have changed a little bit the priorities. I'm sure. Well, I know the staging environment is one of the priorities for the end of the year, for sure. And some insight on way to perform testing with the Exano test database and employ. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not familiar. Because Exano has a test environment. Is that what you're? I'm not familiar with it, but more than happy to have a look. So if I go in Exano, for example, is there? Can you guide me through it a little bit, Ashin? Is there some place where I can? Quick start guide. No, not quick start guide. Not that either. Documentation. Rest. You go to T database. Okay. I'm checking the LB's test. I'm not sure where to look for that. So if I'm here in databases, there's something I can. Yeah, I'm on a free plan, so maybe I'm right above content. Damn, it's not easy with the. I think it's probably going to be tricky to turn off content dashboard when you see all the tables. Okay, right. Ah, okay. Ah, add a test data source. Okay. Yeah, so we actually had a similar question a couple of weeks ago from Frikofu, and at the moment when you use the Xano plugin, I have to do it here, or maybe I did. Let me set up quickly a Xano. My account. Generate API key. Boom. And here, just quickly. That's fine. I'll just give my API key. I'll change it afterwards. Yeah, so when you add your API key here, you only have access to instances. And once you have, I mean, you can choose the instance, but basically once you choose the collection, hmm, I guess the way it would work here, let me see here. It's your entire database, then it's not just table. You can't choose like per table. It'll be like, yeah. I need to go on a pay plan. We do have one. I don't have access for. So if you create a test data source, does that mean like you will have I mean, maybe you tried already in WeWeb Ashin. I would be curious to know when you add the test data source in Xano, and I'll try it for the next live. Actually, it's a super interesting question. We had a similar question already. But I'm wondering, so if you add a test data source, I'm assuming that then in WeWeb you would be able to access what? Oh, I'm assuming you would be able to access the API group. You might have an API group specific to the test data. I mean, I would imagine that's the way you would go for it. Okay, so you use headers in WeWeb to hit tests in production database based on. Ah, cool. Nice. Okay. So does that mean that you use the REST API plugin instead of the native Xano integration, or let's see if we have, for example, I don't know. Oh, that's not a good one. Yeah. I guess then you had to use the REST API plugin so you can add your own headers, right? Because if I go here in REST API, then here you can actually go ahead and, you know, this is a stupid, this is stupid data to get. Oh no, here we go. Let's go and, why do I have a post here? It's weird. Anyway, you can copy here and okay, so then you add your headers here, I guess, using the, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's what I imagined. And so to get back to your initial question, which was some insight on the way to perform testing with Xano test database and applying changes to production that used the Xano live database. I honestly don't have any. I think the way you're approaching it is really cool with variable, but I don't have any specific insight on that. But it's a really good point, actually. Let me write it down. I'll add it. So we have a file with all our user feedback. Let me add it right now. I already added Rikofu's feedback last time, so let me. It would be great to have some, let's say, best practice, I guess. Practice guidelines on how to go about using Xano's test environment and okay, applying changes to production. Used to perform testing with and applying changes to production that use on live database. Okay. Very cool. I just added to our user feedback session. Hopefully, it's a great point. So I'll mention it again to the product team because it would be helpful to have some sorts of guidelines. Does that work for you? I mean, would that help basically just having some sort of best practice on um, how to set up this like a test environment to make it work with WeWeb while we wait for the staging environment? And Isham, you're saying so tested it to build. Oh, cool. You tested WeWeb to build a POC for one of your customers, kind of a dashboard for shipments. Nice. Mostly worked on building APIs with pagination. Okay. And then tested it in WeWeb, also AppSmith, really cool tool to see if your APIs are efficient in terms of response time and navigation fluidity between pages, etc. Nice. And so what did you? I'd be curious to know how WeWeb and AppSmith compared. Actually, AppSmith is a really cool tool as well. I'd love to get your feedback on where we're strong and where they're maybe stronger. I think that'd be cool. And when you say working on building APIs with pagination, what did you do that with? Are you using Supabase or Xano? Okay, cool, Ashton. I'll tell them as well to follow up with you. Actually, not it if possible. Otherwise, we'll keep you posted in a future live, of course. Spring Boot plug to IBM DB2. Okay, that's you got me there. I know none of these words aside from IBM. So it's gonna save you. I would have been curious to know your experience with no worries, no worries at all. I'm just not a backend girl at all. But the NDB2 relational database. Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's go back to here. So again, like this is here we have a unique ID for each row. When you use the data grid, you have to tell the data grid basically what is a unique item. So in this case, we chose this ID, and it just so happens that this ID is actually a page ID, which is great because that is exactly what Notion needs in the URL for the API call. So here we have patch, and actually let me, if this is maybe interesting for some, so let me just copy paste the relevant page from Notion's user doc here. Yeah, and here basically, so actually let me show you. We can have a look at the page together as well. And let's see where this was. All right, so this is the call. So this is the URL, and here in WeWeb, so this is to you'll create an entire page, but the logic still applies. So we'll have the URL to post to patch data in our case, their authorization and the Notion version. And here we'll send the properties so that the properties object we created, except in this case we'll do, actually let me see if I see the patch, if I can find the patch so it's exactly the same. All right, this is the patch one. Okay, this is with the blocks, not lucky I, what the hell? Okay, I don't know where I got it from the documentation, but in any case, this is what it looks like. The property, what we need to send is the properties. So it's similar to what we saw here when you create a page. Here you'll have properties. So we set properties, and then it expects an object. And this is where we're binding to the variable, to our update item object variable. And you can see here that it has only one item. You know, it has the name, description, and whether it's done or not from the tomatoes, some biscuits items, sorry. Because this is something weirder again. I'm not honestly, I didn't dig into this. And then one thing that I mentioned last week, but you may not be aware of, Notion's API needs to make the request through a server. So by default, WeWeb makes requests through the front end, through the client. So we enable this option to work with a Notion API. And yeah, and that's it really. Let me just, I would like just to show you, I will add a column here. And when you add a column in the data grid, you see you have options, like you can add a text. And by the way, when you add a text, here you can actually decide if it's a number or password, like the type of input it might be. But here on the data grid in column 3, I would like to show a checkbox, but I don't have we don't have the checkbox here yet in the data grid. So what I can do is I can choose the custom here, and then I can go ahead and get the checkbox from the element and drag and drop it here. And then the initial value, where am I? The initial value then will be from the element. It will be, so inside the properties, and it will be this. So you see right now we have all 3 are true. No. Oh, it's funny when I'm on here to, okay, that's kind of a little visual bug. We'll have to look into. Anyway, so now if I, let's say update tomatoes, I will change it to cereals. I feel like eating cereals. I'll change the description as well. And I will uncheck the checkbox. If I validate and I go to Notion, I get cereals, yum. And you see here it's unchecked, but actually I cheated. It's not thanks to me. I'll show you now. If I go back again and check it again and I validate, it's still unchecked. The reason for that is because at the moment in the data grid, you can't do a CRUD with a custom type elements, basically. So you need, you can do CRUD, you can update a record with text if it's one of these, text, select, multi-select, or date. So text also includes, as I mentioned, numbers, for example, or emails, and dates actually. But yeah, so this is something that will change, we'll update very soon. I mean, we'll add the checkbox element, but just for now, the reason it was actually, it looked like it updated is because in my object, I wrote false here. So whether I check it, it's not because I unchecked it, it's because I had false there. And similarly, when I checked it again, I didn't change that because I wasn't able to get the path from the data grid. And actually, I kind of want to test something. I mean, pretty sure it's not possible, but I would like to try something. Let's try again, adding a checkbox again. I'm wondering, oops, where did I put my checkbox? It looks like, no. There you go. I'm wondering here. I'm wondering if I I don't think so. It will not work. They would have. But let's try it anyway. I will try to copy the path of the checkbox in my when I update the variable. So here, instead of false, I will say event value in where to find if it's true or false. And let's try this again. It will not work, but I don't think. Oops. Let's see what happens if I. Yeah, doesn't work. Which is logical. I mean, they told me, so I'm not even sure why it. I should always believe the developers. They. I don't even know why I checked. I wanted to check. I felt clever. Anyway, yeah, I think so. I mean that's it really for the update of Notion. So to update a record in the database of Notion, you will need to patch the record. You will need to pass the page ID. You'll need to pass an object with all the properties. And using the data grid, you can't update a checkbox. You can use the checkbox to update the true false. I think that's kind of a good recap of how the CRUD would work with Notion and the data grid. Was there anything else you wanted to chat about? Otherwise, something that could be nice to look into is the date formatting. I don't know if that's something that people want to cover. Let's go ahead and add let's go into Xano. So it looks like I'm not getting. I'm surprised I don't have an API endpoint for right content. Anyway, content. I will get all the content. I don't need authentication. And there we go. So now I will get all the content. So content actually. So dynamic. Get content. Okay. Okay, so I have my 6 objects with the highly imaginative blah blah 2, which are here. And here I have timestamps. So that's kind of what I want to work with because I found a number of users have trouble with it, which is very understandable. Dates are not easy to work with. So let me get rid of this and this and this. Okay, so let's yeah, I think I'm wondering which element to use. I'm gonna try with a data grid. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned in previous slides, but now some elements like data grid come with a fake data. This is to help you. So it's bound to a formula with fake variable with fake data. It automatically adds to your project a fake variable. I mean, a variable with fake data. It's not a fake variable, the variable exists. And this is to show you, that basically that the element requires a list of objects. Now, instead of the fake data, we will bind it to our content collection. So here we could bind it directly to data, or we can bind it to the collection. It's fine. We have to say that the unique ID is here. And then in the column, let's go ahead and building a brand. And in column 2, actually, there we go, and text description. And then a date, I will say created at. And actually, I'll switch off inline editing and selection. And also, I want to make it smaller. But change the column size. Okay, so here I have my dates in timestamp format, and it was not a good idea to choose the data grid. No, I shouldn't have used the data grid, because so here in the data grid, almost everywhere in WeWeb you can use formulas, you can bind, you can use bind things and use formulas to format content. In the data grid, this is not possible, at least not for now. For technical reasons, it would not. I mean, there may be a technical limitation, which means that it will always be in the limitation of the data grid. But in any case, we have to bind the path. You can't add a formula here. So to format a date, I shouldn't have used the data grid. And that's fine. We'll just use something else. Let's create a new container. And actually, delete that. Let's create a collection list. We can use a simple container, but for people who come from Webflow, for example, it's nice to have that notion of collection list. I will bind my content. And in my collection item here, I will go ahead and display here, and maybe actually copy this. And I will have the created at. Oops. And and maybe I will do multi-select items, by the way, if you wanted to apply the same settings to all the text here. Here what I'll do is I'll do columns gap like this. I think it looks horrible. Anyway, that's not the point, and it's fine. Okay, so here I have timestamps, and I'd like to convert them into dates, and I can do that at the moment. If I go into formulas, the only two options I have for dates are the now, so to return the current date in ISO format, or the timestamp to return a timestamp for the current date. So I could say this, for example. Oops. Yeesh. So it's the timestamp for today. But that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is format the date that is in my database in my Xano here. And in order to do that, what I need to do is in the plugins, I will go ahead and get the extensions and I'll add the date extension. We made it into a separate plugin, a separate extension, because when we add it, and you see you can add your favorite date format. So it could be, for example, don't, oops, this. I'm not even sure it's a valid one. Let's find out. But once you add the date extension in the formulas, you have this here, and you have lots of no-code formulas to handle dates, which is pretty cool. And now we can actually go ahead and say, boom. I think it's this one. Oh, sorry. Invalid time value. Okay, so let me see. I need format date. Okay, let's see. By the way, you can like, oh, in this case, it won't work. Go. All right, there we go. So if you use the format date here, you just have to pass. The first argument is the date in an ISO format, so a timestamp would work. Then you can add a second argument. So in this case, it's showing us Sep 3rd, 2021, because we chose. That's what this means. Like the 3 M's, capital M's means we want the month, the 3 first letters of the month, D, and that's the format, basically how it works. But if you wanted to override this format, well, let's actually find out what happens when we don't have a favorite date format. Let's save this here. And now suddenly we see the current value, like, which is like the default date value with all the information and the time. So now actually we could pass as an argument, we could pass our preferred format. And the locale, I'm not sure how it works. I think it would be like this, or I don't know, maybe. Oh yeah, so if I choose FR, which is for French, it'll say sept with a, like, instead of a capital S, it's just a lowercase, because in French we don't put capital letters at the beginning of the month. Like the month is, it's all lowercase. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Let's see if Spanish would be, yeah, so similar to English, except same as French, it's lowercase. I don't know, what other languages should we test? Gonna think, let's see what that does. Yeah, nice. That would be for Japanese. Very cool. All right, so let's say I'll just leave it. I won't specify the locale, but basically, yeah, for dates, you can see here, I know it takes those 3 arguments because it's written in the little tooltip here when I hover over the formula. And yeah, and something that's important to realize is that although, so the date looks like this now, but in Xano it's still a timestamp. So if you had, for example, Here, let's say you have the date for when you publish. Actually, you can say timestamp. It says a timestamp that says, okay, I actually published it. Well, that's not good. To say you published the article on the 9th of August, and let's do a couple. So even though it looks like that on the Xano interface, it's actually a timestamp. So when you send it if you do an operation with Xano, or for example, instead of a publication date, you want to, when a user creates a new article, for example, and you want to update your Xano and have the publication date as the date of today, you need to make sure that you're sending a timestamp. If you send this in this format, in this date format, it won't work. It may sound obvious, but it does happen to users and to us from time to time to kind of miss that and think, okay, I don't understand, because it's it should be working, and it's not. So yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to, what I thought I could talk about today. I don't know if you have. I actually have I was going to offer to look at date range pickers, but I realize I have a meeting in about 1 minute, so I can't offer to extend. But yeah, again, I mean, thanks a lot for joining. We have these every week on Fridays at 9 a.m. EDT, so that's 3 p.m. Central European time. And I don't know all the other time zones, but yeah, please feel free to join us. We love these moments where we can chat with you and answer your questions, and address concerns, or if you have if you'd like to present your project in a future live stream, don't hesitate to email me at joyce@weweb.io. We can co-host a session together and present your project, or if you'd like to build in public with us, feel free to reach out to me directly by email or on Twitter, wherever, and I'd be more than happy to to showcase your projects, basically. Don't forget to, if you want to subscribe to your Twitch and or YouTube channels. The replays of the broadcast will be on the YouTube channel. And thank you very, very much for showing up. We'll have more of these, and please don't hesitate to let us know how we can improve, what kind of content you would like, and we'll do our best to deliver. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.